Hey everyone, welcome to Jonathan's Leftovers. This is a special segment from the Jonathan Project podcast where we talk about a few extra things, practical things from the main episode, which this week's episode was talking about consistency and obedience.
Yep.
So, Jason, let's talk about some of those extra things we want to kind of hit the folks with.
So being consistent, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. You got to be consistent. And you got to go through it. And we talked a lot about muscular similarities, right? Like, you got to hit the gym. You got to be consistent in it. And what immediately went to my mind was the old, how much do you bench? Where you just have a giant upper body and little bitty legs,
Yeah.
right? You got to be consistent. You got to, or you wind up like that. But being consistent, and I love the story in Luke 9, Jesus talks about the crucifixion, right? He really does. He lets people know, and it's in Matthew. He says, hey, I've got to go be crucified. I got to go suffer some persecution and all this. And all the disciples have a visceral reaction, especially Peter. And Jesus tells him, says, hey, man, get behind me. Calls him Satan. But then it says in Luke 9:51, he goes, steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem, because that's where the resurrection was.
Yeah.
And when we talk about being steadfast, you're going to the resurrection.
Yeah.
And that's, as a guy, you got to remember that. And there's going to be some tough days.
Yes, sir. No doubt about that. And I think a good thing that we talked about on the main show, and I encourage all, everyone that's listening to, Jonathan's Leftovers, to go back to the main show and when you have time to listen to it. But one of the first practical steps that leads you to being consistent and obedient in your spiritual life, which then translates to everything else, is a daily devotion.
Yeah.
If you're not starting off your day and you're listening to it, you're like, hey, man, guys, how can I get more consistent? Start with a daily devotion. Set a consistent time, whether that's you're going in to brush your teeth and it's just quiet, you're in the bathroom, you're standing there, just pray or whatever. Get you a little devotional. We have one. It's free. Go check it out. And we'll put that in our links. But set a consistent time. Look at that. Jason showing you all for prayer and Bible reading. Psalms 1 and 2. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. That's important.
Yeah.
Second thing, practical thing. I'm all about that for helping you guys and everyone listening out there. Surround yourself with godly men and or women. Find accountability. You have to have, and I said this before, you have to have a Jonathan in your life. You have to have someone that's going to hold you to the fire and say, hey, man, this is not how God has called you to lead, to be a husband, to be a father. That is critical. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Love it. Stay humble and teachable. Oh, my goodness. How many times have we seen somebody that their cup is full and you can't put nothing in it? They're the smartest person in every room. Pride blocks God's guidance. James 4 and 6, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. The last thing you need in your life, folks out there, is God resisting you. Trust God's timing. Don't rush ahead of God like Saul did, or like any of us did. Like I said, I don't know how many times I thought I was pursuing the right job. I thought I was doing the right thing, pursuing the right relationship when I was younger and single. And it was just ahead of God's timing. Isaiah 40 and 31. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. And then finally, take responsibility for your actions. Oh, my goodness. One of my biggest pet peeves in life is when someone can't stand up and say, hey, that's my bad. Stop making excuses for your own spiritual walk. Don't live in the past and beat yourself up. God's not doing that. But it's time to just say, hey, knock the dust off yourself. Stand up. Be accountable as a man. 1 Corinthians 16:13, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, and act like men. Be strong. Act like men. Be strong. I love it.
So, you mentioned the strong, right? And being consistent. So here's some thoughts. If somebody were going to attack your house, I bet you get really good at knowing how to get that firearm or a baseball bat or something to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You would also get real strong if you knew this person was coming to break into your home, right? And the cops aren't showing up. You would get really good at that. Well, Satan will always be attacking your home. And That's the truth. There's
Mm.
I can't think of the guy. Ripto says, hey, stronger people are more useful and they're harder to kill.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, hey, the guy's got a point, but he really has a point if you apply that to spiritual walks, right? Stronger in your faith, you're absolutely extremely useful, right? And that's it. You really are. And you're also harder for the enemy to kill. If you cannot defend your faith, then you need to be at that point. I mean, you just do.
Yeah.
You're in a fight. And if we were in combat together and you didn't know how to flip the selector switch on your rifle and utilize it, that's a bad thing, right? It's the same concept. If you don't, and you got to start with the basics. Everybody thinks, and I had this discussion with somebody not long ago. Everybody thinks special forces has got this, wazoo doing flips and throwing hatchets and all this other stuff. No. Really, really, really good at the basics. And that's what you have to be. You have to be good at it, you have to be strong at it and stay consistent. Colby, I'll tell you, when I got ready to join, I prayed about it for about 2 years. I really did. And I felt like, okay, this is where God's leading me. When I went to selection, we had to do pre-selection before selection. And that was way back in the day. And it was a swift kick in the gut. And then I broke both of my feet at selection, the metatarsal bones in both feet. Long story short, on that last ruck march, it was 1 foot in front of the other, right? I can make it 6 feet. I can make it to right there, and I can make it right there. But if I had quit, I don't know. I wouldn't have made it through, right?
Yeah.
And God used that later in life.
Yeah.
Being consistent and showing up. Put 1 foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Love it.
There'll be a million excuses why not to do a Bible study or why not to read a verse or say a prayer.
Yeah.
Find one reason. Stay at it.
Yes, sir. No, I love it, Jason. I guess in my final thought would be is, Saul's downfall wasn't him just breaking a rule, and I think for a lot of men out there, depending on where you're at in your faith, you think it's just these rules and these regulations and God is standing around trying to play whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not the case. It was his heart. It was Saul's heart. It is our hearts, right? That we refuse to trust, because that's really what it boils down to, and to obey. If we desire more of God, we got to walk in obedience. Jeremiah 29:13, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. What area of life, folks out there listening, what area of life is God calling you to be more obedient? And take that small step of being more consistent in that, and you'll see it play out in other areas of your life. So, I pray that we can all become more consistent, faithful, and dedicated to Him. But that's my kind of final thoughts there.
So we talked about the devotional, and we talked about it in the previous podcast. It's a free download.
Yep.
It's 2 minutes of your day. It costs you absolutely nothing. Valentine's Day just occurred.
Yeah.
So if you maybe didn't succeed in that one, you can always say, hey, honey, I got this for us, or for me. You will reap the benefit of this, because it does talk a lot about that relationship and what love is. But it's an easy 2-minute read per day. And, it's on the website. It's on your website, Colby. Free, 100% free download. You do have to go through the purchase process, but it's free. There's nothing. Yeah.
There's no cost. Don't worry about it. It's all free. Well, folks, that was Jonathan's Leftovers. Again, it is a bonus to the Jonathan Project podcast, which came out Tuesday. It's out. You can listen to this on Wednesday, Jonathan's Leftovers. Each and every week, or each and every time we feel called, I should say, really more important with Jonathan's Leftovers, to give you some bonus material. You can reach us and find us at thejonathanprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thejonathanprojectpodcast@gmail.com. And on behalf of Jason, thanks, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, see ya. Bye.